Today, we're going to talk about how to transition your career to become a digital nomad. Marissa, if I am a coal miner, can I become a digital nomad?
Yes, you can, Jeff.
What about a
Maybe not
potato
as a
farmer?
coal miner still. Potato farmer, you can also become a digital nomad, but you probably won't be a potato farmer working with your hands anymore. But tell me, Jeff, why are you asking about those two examples specifically?
They're the first ones that came to mind. But I'm asking these questions because on LinkedIn, where I'm spending most of my time interacting with people, I'm getting asked questions always specific about I do this. And usually it's something not particularly digital related. And people are wondering and they're assuming digital nomad, it's in the name. I have to have some sort of digital skills. And they're asking me, well, with my specific skill set, can I even become a digital nomad? I've never had the potato farmer question. I wish I had.
I
Glad I
don't know
thought
any
of it.
potato farmers.
Ah, no. But yeah, so that's why the question comes up. And we get that constantly in our inbox too at hello@beachcommute.com. So there's not a quick answer for it. But like what would be your best response to I do something non-digital related, can I become a digital nomad?
Yeah, and I want to add that before I even answer that question is I feel like I actually get a lot of people of my one-on-one clients, people who reach out to me, people who email us in our hello at Beach Commute inbox, and they're really saying it does not even the super specific in-person job, some of them are, but also a lot of people who just say I've been doing this for a lot of years in an office or for a corporation, and I'm not quite sure how to transition to something that's a little more nomad friendly or something I can really do fully remotely. And I think a lot of even some people who are in jobs that we have digital nomad clients, friends, people in our community who are already doing those jobs and still they're stuck in I'm in an office doing this or I'm required to work from home. I can't leave. Can I really find a company that lets me can I transition into something new that lets, you travel? So if you're listening to this and it's just if you're a potato farmer, if you're what was the other one you said, a coal miner, if you are maybe just someone who's been in an office or feels like you could even be a waitress, a teacher, it doesn't matter whatever that might be. The short answer is absolutely. Like anyone, I truly believe this with all my heart, anybody can find a way to get a remote job that gives you the freedom to travel, hands down. It might be that you have to transition. You might have to switch careers a little bit. You might have to, do something new, make a change. And I think that's where the real fears come in of like, do I have to take a salary cut? Can I even do this? Do you even have the skills? Are you qualified to do anything? I think if I could, drill down one layer beneath, the question that we get is, I do this, can I become that? Is really, do you have transferable skills? Is there something you are qualified to do remotely? But you're not asking what I'm asking is, do you have the courage to make that change?
I think a lot of people, a big fear here is starting over. Like I made it to here. Do I
Huge.
have to get rid of
Yes.
everything and start from scratch? Especially, people around my age, 40 plus, like, oh my God, am I starting at ground zero to do this? What would you answer?
Okay, so the first thing that starting over, I think that you nailed it. So a lot of people who work with us who follow Beach Commute are in this, 30, like 40s, 50s range. And so it's not someone just starting out necessarily. And if you are, you have more of a blank canvas, which is even more of amazing and just, I think, easier from a courage standpoint to do something new when you haven't already sunk 10, 20, 30 years into a career. So the question of like, do you have to start over is a really scary thing because often in your mind, what does that mean? You're losing your identity of what you've done. You are taking a step back, maybe to have a lower position than where you are in the career ladder. That also might mean you take a lower salary. So we're looking at a lot of Maslow's hierarchy of needs of your identity, your shelter, your food, your finances. Like, what does that really mean for you? And is it worth it? And your brain is created to keep you safe and keep you right where you are. So it will give you all the reasons of why, yeah, it would be nice to travel, but it's not worth it. And it will put that in your head over and over and over again and keep you safe right where you are. Even though on the other side of that, could be the most magnificent life, could actually be a lot of career growth in a new field. And the other quote I wanted to, this is what I was writing down to make sure I didn't forget, is you're not starting over, you're starting from experience. So you are not, if you know, you might be the 22-year-old listening to this, but for a second, if you are the 30, 40, 50-year-old listening to this and you're saying, hey, you're not 22 just starting with no experience. You have a lot of things that you have done that somebody, even if it's a slightly different career, would be so lucky to have your skills, your knowledge, your background. You just might be packaging it differently. You might be doing something differently. You might be taking a little bit of a quote downgrade, a career cut, a change, a shift in your identity. It might not be as prestigious to start. You might grow it in 2, 3, 4, or 5 years and be back or better than where you were. But our brains will do everything, and our society, think about like everything we learned in society, especially in the US, but so many places, is like you keep moving up that ladder. Like you do not move backwards. You go forward, forward, forward. You go, get a pay raise, get a pay raise, get a pay raise. Like you are out of your mind if you want to do something you like better and have a better life. If you were taking $10,000 less, $20,000 less, but then you look at it and it's like, well, is your quality of life 100 times better? Is having the freedom to travel the world anytime you want and be wherever you want at any given time, whether that's in a different state or country with family, or in Paris for a month, or Bali for a month, and then Argentina for 3 months, like wherever you want to be, is that worth $10,000 less than you're already making? $20,000 less than you're already making? I think that's a huge important question that we're not taught to ask. We're just like, how can we keep making more money, more money, more money? And it's not mutually exclusive. You also can make more money. You might make more money eventually, but is it worth that slight little bump down as you're transitioning in order to have the freedom? So I just said a lot, but what do you think, Jeff?
Well, I didn't make a career transition to become a digital nomad, but I made a career transition, pretty significant one, for happiness. And it was all these things that you said clicked in me, something that I went through. It was this fear of starting from scratch, biggest one, financial security, fear of financial security, and the unknown. The unknown is scary as hell. We kind of want conclusive things to fall back on. This will happen if this happens, and we want to project it to a safe future. And I'd wanted to do that, and then took the same jump that a lot of people would have to take. Not maybe some people not as bad because I stayed in digital world, right? But still, it's going through the fear hurdles of that. And for me, it was, oh my God, there's no price that you can put on what we get out of this. There's no price you can put on it. The freedom to live anywhere in the world, we've said this so many times, is just unmatched. It's way, way, way too good. And then for some of you, it's worth noting, some of the higher earners in our listenership and a lot of people that talk to us on LinkedIn, we already know, statistics prove, anything beyond like a U.S. salary of $80,000 per year, you don't get any incremental happiness, both as a couple, if you're married, or as a single person. You get no incremental happiness.
Did that number change, though? I feel like that number, it was a Harvard study, or a professor who used to teach that, and the number used to be 75K a lot of years ago. My hunch is that with inflation, that number has changed a little bit, but call it, I don't know, is the number 80K? Maybe you know now. I think it's a little higher now. Okay. So it's now 100,000. Yeah, that would be my hunch. So
the difficult part with that one is you have to weight it based on where you live. So it's just across the board, across the United States. It'd be about $100,000 or so. Yeah, and I say that's absolutely true. It's just I cut my salary in half, and I was like, all right, I'm like 10 times happier with less money. There's nothing else that I wanted. So it is
You're
scary
free.
because you are taught to earn more money, and you're not doing it right if you're giving up money, and you're not doing it right if you're not making more money constantly. And that's how we kind of measure. That's our measuring stick with everything. And internally, even it's like it's so counterintuitive to be like, I'm going to give up resources for anything, and yet you have to take that jump. And it took me. How long did it take you and Diego pushing me before I did that?
3 years.
3 years. 2020.
Maybe longer. 4?
No,
3?
No. Because it was 2019 we met, and then 2022 I did it. So
You
yeah,
took
3
the
years.
full leap away.
The
And
full
you
3
knew
years
it was
though.
right. We knew it was right, but it
I
took
knew
you,
in
and
here.
that's
Yeah. I
yeah,
knew
and
inside
that's
that it was
okay,
right.
right? There's no
Yeah.
rush, and sometimes people listen to this podcast for 2 years, and then suddenly it's like, all right, today's the day I'm doing it. Some people hear this, and a month later they're rocking and rolling into a new career, and you take the leap. So there's no right or wrong, and we're patient, but if you're listening to this, we at least want to put that idea into your head of that, money isn't everything. And I also want to say, like, I've done so much money mindset work, and I want to make sure to say, if you're listening, that money is not evil, money is not bad. You also don't have to, like, you don't necessarily have to make less in order to become a digital nomad and travel. We have plenty of friends who make 150K, 250K. I know business owners who are there's a digital nomad I travel with who sold a business for $20 million. Like, there is no cap to what you can do. But again, in this, I guess what we're saying is, in this transition, if I think this is the big word I want to use, is if you do need to make this transition to a slightly lower salary to start, as you then build back up, it still may be worth it. And I think that's exactly what you were saying, Jeff, is like your happiness from quitting your job and doing something new, making literally half as much as you were before, but 10x your happiness. You're less stressed, you have more joy, you have more freedom. Like, it has transformed your life in unimaginable ways. But we're not, if you just look at society, if you told someone, a typical person in the US especially, but maybe anywhere, if you're like, hey, I used to make this, I'm now making 50% of that, they would just be like, have you, and you chose that, they would say, have you lost your mind? Like, what the fuck, right? So
Yeah.
why did you feel that was important for you, and how has it changed your life?
Well, it was 3 years of you convincing me, beating me down.
Having me as your coach, you must.
was a factor for sure. I'd have to admit that was a factor. I think the main thing was I knew it in my gut, like my body told me that I had to do it. And this is one of the biggest learning things for me over the last 6 months, is to like stop ignoring those signs and pay close attention to them. If it's something telling you to not do something or to do something. And this one was both. It was telling me to not work for a company anymore, and it was telling me to work for myself. And I was just fighting against it. And then eventually it just beat me down, and I finally gave in. I was like, sure enough, my body was right. I listened to it. And since then, the amount of freedom that I feel with being able to build the things that I want to build with Beach Commute, spend the time. The most important thing to me is my time. My time is invested in things that I like now. And like we've talked about before, if I have to step out and walk away and go play 3 hours of pickleball to get my head right so I can come back charged, we can do that. It's great, you know. And a lot of times with these companies that we promote, they've got flexible schedules. They allow you to do this kind of thing because they recognize that, we're human beings and we need to recharge and do all these things to make us productive. So for me, it's been, what a great leap of faith. Probably the best leap of faith that I've taken. Yeah. And it is kind of a leap of faith because by definition, you don't know what's going to happen. You can't know what's going to happen. It's scary, but you got to do it. If you want something, you got to do it.
Yeah. I had the same. I knew I wanted to travel, and I had to quit my, prestigious corporate job. And it was like the amount of fear that I had and the courage it took to do it. I actually tried to do it once before, and they offered me a promotion, and then I stayed for 2 more years. So I was like, I literally called and said, I'm quitting. And they said, we're giving you this job. And I was like, all right.
Damn it.
So we get it. Right? Like, I stayed for 2 more years until finally, like my body was just like, no, I think I had it back, and like everything. It was just like, no, it's screaming, like, do something different, find a way to travel, like, go be free. But it took a lot of major, like, rock bottom, like, changes in order for me to be like, all right, I am doing it, And it's funny, I was back in New York about a couple weeks ago or a month ago, whenever that was, and I had like PTSD. I woke up at, I think it was like it was probably 4 or 5 a.m. and I was in this hotel room in New York City, not far from where I used to live. And I looked out and saw all the city lights and like people's lights on early in the morning. And I used to have to wake up at 6 a.m. like in the pitch black to get on the train to go to my office. And I just was like, Oh, I just had this flashback. I woke up almost thinking like I have to go into work today, into this office that I don't want to go to in the dark and the cold or whatever. And it was that moment where I was just like, no amount of money, could make me go back to that. And that nothing is worth the, I don't know, the rigidness that I felt of having to live that life, and how grateful. And every day I wake up and I'm just so grateful that I have the freedom to, be where I want, whether that's in Costa Rica, in Mexico, in the US with family, or in Thailand, or wherever I choose. And just like you said, maybe I'm not feeling well for an hour and I just want to lay down and work from my couch for a minute. When I was in an office, like, you had to just sit at your desk and pretend to be a functioning human, when sometimes you just needed to go outside and get some sun. So just to have the freedom, it's so worth any, I don't know, to me, you can't put a price on that anymore. And you can still make a great salary. Like, our goal is to help you ideally still make a great salary of what you're making or more. Have both, but I think, and we didn't know we were going to go down this rabbit hole today, but it's like, if you do need to take what feels like a slight step back to start something new, to transition to a slightly different something, take a little bit of a salary cut, like, just to think about how worth it that might be.
Let's talk about what it would look like for somebody who doesn't have this perfect, seamless, I could do the current job that I'm doing, move over, become a digital nomad. So maybe not the potato farmer, maybe the potato
farmer.
Maybe the potato farmer.
I think I'd hire a potato farmer. I feel like they would, if you could teach some skills, I feel like they'd be people, they'd be like ready to do some skills. But no,
well, with the right coaching, you can teach anybody, right? Like,
really?
Anybody. I've taught the least capable digital people how to do SEO. Like, you can teach anybody with the right instructions. So you've been doing this for a decade now. So where do you start? Where do you go?
Yeah. So the first thing you want to look at is transferable skills. I feel like this is kind of a buzzword that people throw around, that you're like, yeah, transferable skills. Like, what does that really mean? Like, is it really a real thing? So let's just start with, like, what is a transferable skill? That basically means something you've been doing in your old job, or just something you're naturally skilled or gifted at, or have developed, or know, some sort of skill that you have, and that you can take and do something else with it. So as a potato farmer, maybe you might be really hardworking. Maybe you are great. What would a potato farmer be good at, Jeff? Maybe you're great at what?
I mean, work ethic for sure, right?
It feels like that's my hunch.
Probably organized, probably up very early.
Whatever that might be, right? I don't either, but let's use we'll use a different example. A lot of us come to us who maybe work in healthcare, right? We have a lot of nurses who come to us.
That's a good one.
So you're thinking, like, let's say as a nurse, maybe you're giving IVs, you are checking on patients and giving them medicine, you're taking vital stats, right? You're thinking, okay, what sort of transferable skills do you have that you could do as a digital nomad? So some transferable skills, let's think about a nurse. It might be that you have really clear and compassionate communication with it's been your patients, but with people in general. I can't tell you how many skills, like if you think about customer service, if you think about managing the client accounts, being an account manager, you have to, in sales, you have to interact with people, you have to understand people, you have to be compassionate and communicate. So, right, like, I would trust probably nobody more than an amazing nurse who has dealt with, like, sick or really unhealthy or dying patients, or family members who are stressed. Like, who better than a compassionate nurse to be able to have that kind of communication? So that's one example. Maybe as a nurse, you're really great at coordinating in fast-paced environments, right? Maybe you're working in an ER where things are happening all the time, or you're in charge of 20 different nurses and schedules or doctors, and making sure, information doesn't get dropped or passed by. Like, you could probably organize better than anything else. So if you think about a project manager, operations, there's so many jobs, digitally that need that skill. So these are just two examples. Again, you might say you can make fast-paced decisions. You can know how to prioritize, right? If you're working in a fast-paced where you're like, okay, I have 10 patients who need me. Who needs me first? Who needs me second? Who needs me third? Like, businesses need that. Can you pay close attention to detail? So you have all of these skills. So again, more than just a buzzword, hopefully you can hear now how those are real skills that you may not be injecting patients with, IVs, and you may not be giving them medicine, but you have all of these skills that any company would be so lucky to have for you to do in some sort of remote job for them.
Is there a particular type of job that you would be tempted to push them towards, or is it all just depending on what their transferable skills is, and then you would select something based on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have a process that I go through with people. And by the way, if you're interested in getting some support with us, we have a program now that you can join or you can apply. There's actually a really long wait list at the moment, but if you go to beachcommute.com/apply, beachcommute.com/apply, you can join a remote job fast track program, and we'll take you through this exact process that I go through with clients. I'll talk a little bit about what it is, and then we have a coach who will actually meet with you and help you make this decision and look at what transferable skills do you have. So let me just get to a little bit beyond that. It's not an exact science. It's not like every nurse who comes in, you go do this. Every teacher who comes in, you go do this. Every potato farmer who comes in, you go do this. We're all complex beings with different hard skills, what I call different hard skills, soft skills, which we'll talk about in a second, different passions, interests, things that we like to do, don't like to do. We have some nurses who are like, I can do those things, but I don't want to do that. I've actually been wanting to do this that I'm really good at. So it's not one size fits all. That's why I really love the program we put together, because it helps, we really look at you as an individual, not just like a machine in a cog in a machine. But when I work with clients, and it's the same process inside this program, I will say, okay, what are those skills, those hard skills that you have learned, which we call those, hard transferable skills, which is, maybe you're a software developer, maybe you're an accountant, maybe you're a nurse that can do these things that probably you've learned on the job or in a specific school program. The second thing is soft skills. So that is your compassion. Like what I always say, what do people tell you that you're good at? It's not typically those things that you think about on a resume, but it's like people really trust you, or you light up the room when you walk in, or you're really funny, or you're great at connecting, different people who should know each other, things like that. So I take the combination of what are those hard skills? What are those soft skills? And then what are you just genuinely, where do you lose track of time? What do you love doing? What are you interested in? And I have a formula. I take all that and put it together. It's and then we spit out
you have a formula?
The remote career.
Wait,
not
what
exactly.
Is this tool? Is this
I was at me.
brain?
It's me.
Oh, you're the formula. Oh, okay.
I'm a formula.
I thought you built some cool tool that I wanted to borrow.
Oh, I wish. Not quite. Well, kind of. Inside we'll help you in the program. It kind of is. There is a little bit of a formula, and there's a last step that you have to join the program to see. But we take all those things, and it really does spit out here's 10 different ideas that you can do, and then you work with a coach, because then I always tell people in 30 minutes I can pinpoint your dream career. But then if we kick it back to the beginning of the episode, it's all the fears that kick in of, do you have to take a slight cut in your salary for a little bit? Do you have to transition to something new and scary? Do you have to change your identity? Do you have to walk away from a career that you spent 7 years in school and 10 years with, climbing this ladder within a company that trusts you, and now you're leaving it all behind? It's all the fears that come beneath it. And the one other thing, this is slightly different, that I wanted to mention before when we talked about that starting over sort of feeling, is to look at sunk cost. So this is an economic term that I learned back in business school, but it applies so dramatically to switching careers, which is what I just talked about. Let's say you spent, $70,000 on some master's program that you did, 2 extra years of school in addition to college, or you've just been working in a certain career, you've worked your way up to ladder, and you're now making $250K in some career that makes you miserable. But you look at it and you say, I've invested so much time, I've invested so much money to get to where I am now, that you don't want to leave it. But the sunk cost principle says, if you look at this today, the decisions you've made in the past should be irrelevant, and it should look at what do you want today moving forward. So the example that I gave is, let's say, Jeff, you bought a ticket to go to a conference in Europe later this summer, and you spent $500 on the ticket, and you've already bought it. And let's say it was for an SEO conference. And then you decide, I don't really like SEO. I don't really want to do this anymore. But your brain says, well, I've already spent $500 on this ticket. I don't want to, and it's non-refundable. So I'm still going to buy the airfare and I'm going to go spend 4 nights in a hotel in Europe. I'm going to spend 5 days of my time that, you could be in Mexico where you really want to be right now. And you end up spending $1,500 more and 5 nights. And you're going to this conference that you don't even want to be at anymore. So the point is, you're saying, I've already spent $500, but now you're spending $1,500 more and wasting time and money. So if you look at that on a broader scale of your career, let's say you've spent $100,000 at some point 10 years ago on your education, or even if you spent $5,000, doesn't matter. Maybe you've spent 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years building up your trajectory in this career. You say, well, I don't want to give that up, but it's something you don't even want anymore. So the sunk cost principles look at that and say, that is irrelevant to my decision right now. What do you really want to do? And there's some relevance to the way of, well, in the future, I want to be making money. I need to live. You want to have a career. But you look at it and say, if I had spent no time and no money, what would I do today as I look at my future of what do you really want to do, right? So if in that example I gave before, if you ignored the $500 you'd already spent, you'd say, well, I want to stay here in Mexico right now. And I want to work on this other thing that I actually like. So there's a lot that goes into it, but that was kind of going back to those fears at the beginning. I wanted to circle back, but looking at the transferable skills, there's so many transferable skills that you have, and also different passions and interests that, a lot of people, maybe you, if you're listening to this, got into a career that you don't even really, really love. Somehow you just sort of ended up doing it. I would say probably 5% of the people who have been applying to our program, different beach commuters, people I've worked with, are like, I actually love what I'm doing. I love my career. I love this business. I just need help finding a remote career, like to find a company that gives you the freedom to do it and to, get your resume seen and get the interview and prepare for the interview and get the job. So we help you with that too inside the program. But I would say 95% of people come saying, I don't even really like what, you don't even really like what you're doing.
Yeah,
but it's really scary to leave.
You're invested.
You're sunk.
Yeah.
You're sunk. You're invested.
It's like
and
you don't want to waste resources, right?
Yeah,
like you've
and you don't really know what to do next.
Okay, so where do you take them from there? I mean, and also, like, what is it's usually always stemming from some sort of fear, right? So the fear there is wasted time. Like, do I have to admit to myself that I've wasted time?
That's a big one.
Is that what it is? You actually have to look back and think you didn't waste time, obviously. We can say that, but
I would say you did the best you could with decisions and knowledge you had at the time.
You will feel that maybe it was wasted time, and that hurts, right? Admitting that maybe you wasted your time.
Absolutely. That's a great one. So many clients of mine come to me. I've worked, if I think about even just a lot of one-on-one clients I've worked with in the past, whether they were 25, 35, 45, 55. I'm not sure I've worked with anyone in their 60s, but we absolutely could. I have everyone at every single one of those ages saying, like, I'm kicking myself, Marissa. Like, why didn't I make this decision sooner? Like, you just helped me see what I want to do, but like, is it too late? It's almost this grieving process of I've already wasted so much time, but everybody feels that no matter where you are. So I'd say wherever you are, like, live your best life today. It is never too late. And you might, what's the quote with investing? Or it's like, yeah, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So yeah, it's really easy to look back and be like, well, damn, I wish I had taken the leap 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and you kick yourself for wasting time. But do it now, right? Because you still have life to live. Like, you're not, this isn't the end. You still can find something you love and make a lot of, great money doing it. So yeah, there's multiple fears, which is you don't want to waste time. You don't want to lose the identity of who you've been. This isn't probably what you're thinking consciously, but it's a big one, is like, you've been a teacher, you've been a nurse, you've been a, doctor, you've been a HR, whatever it is that you've been, but you're like, but I really want to do X, Y, and Z. And it's scary to switch that identity. So there's that, the fear of taking a lower salary, the fear of, are you even capable of doing something else? Like, what if you want to switch and who are you to do that? Are you even qualified? Is anyone even going to hire you? So we work through a lot in this program as well to help you really, really not just say, well, in theory, I'd like to do that, you'd like to do this, but then also say, how do we we have some awesome coaches in there who are going to help you, it's called telling your narrative which will help you say, okay, yes, I've been working as a nurse for these last 12 years, but here's the reason I'd be a kick-ass project manager, right? And to confidently say it, because the problem is if you try to do this oftentimes by yourself, you go to apply and your resume doesn't quite match because you don't know how to like take what you've done and make it look appropriate for the new job you're applying for. We help you with that. A lot of times you show up, even let's say you get an interview somehow, you show up and they're like, well, tell me about yourself. And you're like, well, I've been a nurse for 12 years. And there's this like lack of confidence that comes through, even if, even if the interviewer doesn't even realize, where you're like, I'd love to, organize and do this. But if you don't believe it and you don't know how to tell that story of how you are transitioning from nurse to project manager, then you won't get the job. And so we really help you really confidently like tell that narrative, come proudly and speak to, what this new job is that you want. And that's what gives you the confidence. That's what helps the fear go away, is having someone to help you prepare to answer those questions, to be confident in your transferable skills and your journey and why you are the best person for the job, even if you've never done that job exactly before. And it's tricky and it takes practice and it takes nuance. And that's why we've got like amazing coaches in there to help you do it. So there's some tactical things for sure. And then there's a lot of this like work underneath that comes to help you feel confident and feel good. And, even inside the program, and if you come in and we have coaches to help you say like, you're like, I'm fucking terrified of leaving my nurse job. I just had this interview and I even got an offer and I'm so scared to give my notice, right? We will help you with that. So it's all a part of it. And it's, I think it's easy for us to say now, just make the switch, right? Do it. Like, it's so worth it. The other side is so worth it. And I hope you can hear that, because Jeff and I have done the work. We have switched. And from where we are now, so many years later, like, I think I quit my job almost 10 years ago now, but it was easily the hardest thing I've ever done. And so we come at this from a place of compassion for you, because we have made that hard decision ourselves as well. And we know how fucking hard it is and how worth it is on the other side to have the freedom to, I've traveled to almost 80 countries at this point. I have just lived like the most magical life because I was willing to take that leap. And it's why, both of us are so passionate about helping you to do the same, because like the magic is on the other side of that leap and it's scary and we love to help you do it.
So to add a little bit more confidence to everything that you're talking about with the transferable skills, not feeling confident when you're jumping into something brand new. I've said this many times before. When I was hiring people, I would hire people with no background in digital marketing, no background in SEO. I hired some people that were English majors and did nothing even close to this kind of thing. And for me, and hopefully a lot of other hiring managers out there, what I'm looking for is character. I'm looking for hunger, enthusiasm, just general ability to do what it is that you do. So your background wasn't in that. Explain to me how into it you were and how good you were at that, right? Because that, for me, is really the only thing that matters, especially if you're just starting out. It's more of a, intermediate or more of a, what would you call, like a beginner's type of role. That's the only thing I can't teach is passion for doing what you're going to do. And a lot of hiring managers, I think, will see that and be like, that's what I need. I don't need an expert. I need somebody that I can rely on that's going to grow into this role. They don't necessarily need to be perfect for the role, but they have the capability to grow into it and be really good for the role. So people do this. I'm an example of somebody that hires people who don't have the perfect background or even match the job listing perfectly. I'd say the one person I hired maybe had 10% of the skills that we put on our wish list job listing, and that was fine. And she was one of the best employees I ever had. So this is a real thing. It's not just some fantasy that we're, spouting out. This is real life. You do get hired doing these things.
And it also can depend. This is why sometimes you take a lower salary cut to start, or even you do something for free for a little bit, as like you volunteer your time with a nonprofit or a friend who has a business or something like that, just to get some of those skills. Because there are some jobs, as you're saying, Jeff, where you can hire purely for like the personality, their their drive, those soft skills of just like you're a person we like and we know you can learn and you're enthusiastic. There's a lot of jobs. I feel like 80% of the jobs that we see listed can be like that. And then there are some jobs that you do, like if I'm going to hire someone to do Facebook ads for us and you've never done it before, I guess it would just be a different pay raise where I'm not going to go pay you X amount of money when you're like, do you even know how to do this? But if I was like, hey, I can teach you, I know you've never done this, I'm going to probably pay you a little less to start, see what you can do. I'll teach you these skills and then do it. Or, if you're an accountant, right? Like if you've never managed someone's books before and you're trying to be paid, I'd be like, well, why would I pay you to, I couldn't hire you to do this because I don't even know if you can do this, right? But if you're like, hey, I've been managing for a couple months, I've been doing this, I've been doing these books, I'd be like, okay, I see that you can do it. And there's some jobs that really do take, several years of expertise that like you actually do need experience or someone wouldn't hire you for, but that's okay. And if you want to go down that route, you can start to get training, offer for free, learn, do some services, and then grow into it. But 80%, I feel like, of the jobs are things that you can learn on the job if you are just, have those transferable skills you're willing to do. An example, like event, we have some people who want to go into like event management. If you were just a hyper organized person, let's go back to the nurse who's like organizing 20 different other, patients at one time and doing it. I'd be like, I think you could probably manage this. And maybe I wouldn't hire you to lead it because there's things you wouldn't know yet, but you could definitely work on the team with someone who knows, who's overseeing it all, who's done it a few times, and you can help with your organizational skills. So that's why sometimes you kind of take and let's just use that as an example. Maybe you take a lower pay cut to start and you start doing that. And after a year, you're like, okay, I got the event thing down. I can plan this remotely. I know the vendors to reach out to, the people, the things we need to think about. And now you can raise your salary and go run with that and do it more. So again, there are some things that you need to have some experience in, but there's kind of points that you can enter based on your skills and then run forward fast again.
Is there anything that we missed that we want to leave people with?
I don't think so. I would say just the kind of steps to do this is like identify the skills you have, the passions you have, identify the role you want, make sure you update your resume and your LinkedIn to match that so you have the keywords that people are looking for. And then you need to know how to find the remote companies and get your foot in the door, because just submitting your application it doesn't usually work. There's other methods. But if you would like any extra support with this is exactly what we help you with inside a remote job fast track program. And that's beachcommute.com/apply if you were interested in this. But I think the biggest takeaway is that we hope, whoever you are, whatever you do, whether you're the potato farmer, the coal miner, the nurse, whatever you are currently doing, or just in an office job you don't like, there's absolutely something you can do, and the change is worth it on the other side. And it can take some courage, some mindset, sometimes a pay cut, sometimes not, but you can make just as much money absolutely at some point doing something you probably like even more while you have the freedom to travel wherever you want, no matter who you are. So that's my biggest message. What's your takeaway? Yes, thousands of people.
My takeaway here is that you really have to listen to your body saying that you want to do this. And if you ignore it, it's not going to be healthy for you. You're just going to be regretful, right? You'd just be kind of resentful towards yourself for not doing the things that you want to do, because there's no magic age when everything just all comes together. It's like, 65 years old, you look back and say, all right, well, I'm so proud of myself for having worked so hard. It's like, nobody says that. They say they're proud of themselves when they do have that moment of courage and take that leap of faith and they did something scary. That's when people actually change. It's these things only matter in the context of it being difficult for you to be proud of yourself. It has to be difficult for you to do something courageous. So you got to do it. Trust us. You might not know as well, but trust us.
Just trust us. Trust us blindly. I will say too that, Jeff, if one of the biggest things I think so often, like over the last, 6, 7, 8 years, as I've took this leap and started traveling and had all these amazing experiences, like all over the world, like the countries, we've visited, the people we've met, the experiences we've had. I so often think about like, if this sounds, I don't mean I often think about dying, but I often think about if I were to die in this moment, is there anything about like my life I would regret right now? And the answer is absolutely not. But if you would ask me while I was like in my corporate job and whatever and thinking and wanting to travel, oh, there's these places I want to go and there's this place I want to go and so much life I hadn't lived, absolutely. I'd be like, wait, don't take my life yet. Like I got places to go. I got things to do. So there's always more places I want to go and experiences I want to have and places I want to travel. But if I look at my life today, I say I'm living it exactly as I want, when I want, how I want, to the best that I can. And I feel so good about that. So I think as I heard you say that, if you're listening to this, the question that I would ask to you as a coach today is to say, do you feel the same? Like if you died today, and we hope you don't, we hope you live a very long life, but if you did, would you regret how you were living right now and the things you haven't done because of the constraints on your life? And if the answer is yes, then do trust us because you probably do want to go through this. And it's not perfect. It's like you're still working. There's still going to be things about your job here and there that you don't like or meetings you might have to attend, but you're going to be one step closer. At least you have the freedom to travel where you want, have these amazing experiences, hopefully do a job that you love way more. Like I think that's one thing I'm passionate about is not only do we just help you get any job that lets you work remotely, but like actually help you figure out what career would you genuinely most love? And how do you do that remotely while you travel so that you can have, you're one step closer, you have a freer life and hopefully you're living it more in alignment of like no regret. So that's my final words.
Okay, with that, thanks for joining us, and we will see you again next week. If you want to reach out to us, we are at hello@beachcommute.com, and of course, you can always leave a comment directly in the podcast, and we will respond to you there.